Welcome to the Lessons from Sports podcast. I'm your host, Wayne Partello, and we are into season 2. This is episode 2 of season 2, and it's our 16th total episode. I'm really fired up. Every conversation that I have along this experience of talking to different people from their careers, I get more and more excited. And this conversation with my buddy Brian Napoli from the Philadelphia Eagles is no different. It takes us through sort of his evolution of his career and a critical fork in the road that at the time felt like it didn't go his way. And there is so many lessons to be learned from this, just one specific story, but in total in this episode. So I'm so fired up for you to hear our conversation. I hope you enjoy it. So without further ado, here's my conversation with Brian Napoli. These ones are fun for me because I get to actually catch up with a friend that I've been dying to catch up with anyways. And so this one will be, it's a little bit different where I haven't talked to you in so long, but like obviously following along. We're on text, so we text all the time, but I haven't had a chance to actually see your face. So I love seeing your face, dude. Brian Napoli from the Philadelphia Eagles, which is just amazing, dude. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Wayne. And I'm honored, excited to be a part of it. And you're right. It's been far too long. We need to drum up some business for you here in Philly so you can spend a little bit more time in person.
Hey, I love that. And I love Philly, and I love watching everything you guys have done out there. And if you could, so obviously I know who you are, but tell us a little bit about you, how you got to where you are today, and then finish up with what you're doing today.
Yeah, absolutely. So, although I spent a lot of time in Boston, and that's where you and I met, I am kind of a Philadelphia native. I grew up in the greater Philly area in South Jersey, went to high school in this area. Fortunate enough to go to school in Boston and find a way to stay for about 8 years after graduation, working in the media business with you, in an ad sales position at WEEI, at Red Sox Radio, Celtics Radio, and really just having an amazing experience there, kind of learning, growing, stepping out of my comfort zone like most 20-somethings need to do to get to where they want to go. And had the opportunity to come work for the Philadelphia Eagles in a sales role in 2010. Was fortunate to get the job, jumped on that opportunity, and have grown at the Eagles ever since. Over the 14 plus years now, was promoted to director of sales, vice president of sales, and more recently in the last couple of years, our senior vice president of the entire sponsorship department, overseeing sales and our activation group. So it's been a great run,
man.
Seen a couple Super Bowl appearances, one win, one loss, but
you got there. You're dancing. It was fun. I remember those years, and it's pretty crazy, to go back to those Boston years, because obviously I've had a bunch of the guys from those years, and we say the same thing every time. Like those early years, you don't realize you're building hopefully building relationships with people that. I was just talking to my wife, Kristen, who worked with us for a little bit. And she was like, it's so funny, the guys that you just referenced, and we're talking about you and, a bunch of the guys we worked with. And she was like, you can look back and now see some common threads amongst you're all very different. Like you all come about it differently, but there are common threads. I mean, just thinking of some of the crazy characters, but we built friendships that have lasted us a lifetime.
Yeah. And look, I think every single one of us values people. I think, again, despite different personalities and different approaches in our careers, we do value people. I think we all have a true kind of North Star in who we are as human beings, first and foremost. And I think that's why we kind of share that common thread. We are, you're nothing without the people that you surround yourself with. And we had so many people go out of their way to help us become who we are. If you don't pay that forward, and if you don't remember that and cherish that and try in some way to do the same for others, and, kind of shame on me is the way I've always looked at it. And so I think that keeps us close too.
Yeah. And I love that you just said that, because you're right. There were so many, just people that did go out of their way. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think I sent you the picture, but I happened to be back in Boston. I was doing a project. I was in Boston and I walked into my hometown, Norwood, Massachusetts. I walked into this little bar called Lewis's, which is like the town, like my spot. Like when I go home, that's where I want to go. And I walk in and there's Chris Hennessy and Mike Brown, who were two of those older guys, right? Like they were like old to us. Like they had like,
Yeah.
they were like mad, kids, like family. We were like, whoa, we were like 22 and dumb.
Sure.
But they tucked us under their wings, and I walked in and there's the two of them randomly standing together. And I'm like, what are you guys doing here? But like the amount of laughs and stories, I went from me having a quiet, cheeseburger and a cocktail to 2 hours of just pure laughter and just love.
It's so cool. And it's funny because the relationship thing, like it can become a cliche, right? Like relationships are important and that's what matters. And it's true, right? It's
It's
true.
everything.
And it's also really cool to see those guys, and they're just two examples of many others, right? Kind of take so much pride. You could see that genuine appreciation or excitement for many of us, right? As we've
Yeah,
gone
for
on to
sure.
do different things and just been blessed with a great career and great life already, and we have a long way to go. So
Yeah, no, you're 100% right. It was pretty. I shared that with a few people, who my friends at home. Like it was just the amount of pride they had in all of us, and just like they had another young sales guy with them, and they were teaching him some things, and they were like, "You don't understand." And they started like listing all of us and like what we all do now, and just this crazy ride, and yeah, just immense pride of seeing all of us. Like when the Eagles were in the Super Bowl, just telling everybody, "Dude, my buddy's there. That's amazing."
yeah.
Like you do have that pride, and I love it. And the other thing I tell people all the time, which I'd love your take on, radio, we were on the radio side to start and then obviously evolved into like .com and what we did there. But like,
Hmm.
I feel like radio as an industry was a blessing for many of us at a young age
Yeah.
they because they didn't spend a lot of money, right? As an industry, they
Right.
allowed young people to do way more than we should have been able to do, should have been
Right.
allowed to do. But it opened doors, and to Rushton's credit, he also did that too. He
He did.
trusted like us to do. He would give you the coaching and the guidance, and then give you a little bit more free reign than I think a lot of other leaders gave their young folks.
Right. And what we lacked maybe in financial investment, we certainly didn't lack in investment in people, right, and time.
100%.
From Jim to Bob McEwen and many others who just dedicated so much time to allowing us to get better. I think back to some of those weekly sessions, kind of role playing different sales scenarios, and I would never want to do it again, even at this stage of my career, if I'm being totally honest. But
Yeah.
man, it makes you better. It makes you step
Yeah.
out of your comfort zone. Sometimes you fall on your face, but that's kind of important, and you need
And
to do that.
they're there to pick you up too, right? I think
Right.
that's the part. I had someone said this to me the other day. They were interviewing for a job when they were that age, and they said they were given this question to ask, companies, and the question was, who's the greatest leader in your company? That's the department I want to go work for. Right.
Mhm.
Like which department, what do you, when you're meeting somebody like, oh, what do you want to do? I want to work for a great leader. And I'm like, gosh, that is, I say this all the time. Like I was blessed throughout, and I know you have been too, with
Yeah.
incredible leaders who just poured everything into us. And I texted a guy the other night, just something had happened. I'm like, dude, you taught me this. Like you did this for me, 8, 9 years ago. And I just got to do it for one of my employees for the first time. And like,
Right.
I had goosebumps as I got to like provide this amazing experience to an employee. And I said, you did that for me forever. And he was like, dude, thanks so much for the call. Like that means a lot. Like somebody did it for me and I did it for you and a few others. And now you're doing it. So that means it's carrying on. And I know that's happened for you as well.
It has. It totally has. In my time since I left Boston, not only do I have a Rolodex of people to call, to celebrate, complain, compare notes, whatever it might be, vent. But there have been so many great people at the Eagles. I think what I'm fortunate, a couple things. One,
Yep.
the consistency, right? The product, who I work for, great ownership,
Yep.
an amazing sports town, right? There are all these things that just make Philly and the Eagles extremely special.
Hmm.
So I'm playing with a pretty good hand, and I recognize that. But like you have to be aware of that, right? There needs to be a touch of humility in there to understand that at times the brand is a whole lot bigger than you. There's
A
also
lot of people miss that in sports zone
they
apps. Like a
do,
lot of people think it's them. And it's like that humility of like, I didn't create this. This
right?
isn't me. I'm fortunate to represent it, but
Sure.
I'm not the ego in the game can get pretty bad pretty quick.
It can, and I've always taken pride in not being like that. I'm sure I stray from time to time, as we all do, but
Just
you
with
know,
us, it's fine.
yeah, it helps when you have leaders at the top who
Yeah,
kind of set
100%.
the right tone and the right culture. And what we take seriously at the Eagles. So what can you control, right? We're not.
Yep.
I'm not out there taking snaps or catching passes, but I can certainly control how the business community and in some cases a subset of our fans, our ticket
Yep.
holders, and many other constituents that make this machine turn. I can control how they feel about and perceive the team.
Yep.
And if you have hundreds of Brian Napoli's doing the same thing as advocates, as ambassadors of the brand and of the team, then you end up right with a pretty good culture. You have everyone
Yep.
kind of running in the same direction, trying to accomplish the same thing, but also trying to do right by all those constituents I mentioned: ticket holders, the business community, the
Yep.
sponsorship community, et cetera. All the businesses that spend significantly on suites and club seats and all of that. And
Yeah.
you can't forget any of them, but you have to remember the responsibility that you have, and that has been instilled in us from the top. And when we have like an intern or an associate, as we call them, that comes in, the best example or kind of comment that I can make to them to allow them to realize it is your next door neighbor. When they see you and they learn that you got a job at the Eagles, you may be the only true personal connection to the team that they have,
Yep.
right? So who you are, how you act, how you show up, answer questions that they inevitably will have, right, about the team. That
Yep.
that matters. And when you have a moment in time where you can do something nice to someone, right? There's so much emotion that goes into this business. Sometimes it's irrational emotion, but that's what makes it fun. That's what makes it exciting and special. It's why you have to be thoughtful, careful, but you
Yeah.
also have a great gift and an opportunity because you represent something that means so much to so many people, and especially with the Eagles
Yeah.
here in Philly, right?
Yeah, for sure.
There's nothing like it. Boston's similar in some ways,
Yeah.
and Chicago and a couple other towns have it, but it's really unique to this market and this brand, and that with that comes great responsibility, and you just
No
can't
doubt.
forget it. So
Yeah, I love that. One of the things that when I was thinking about talking with you was you talk about 2010 and it's a story I tell often. I don't know if
yeah,
you know this or not, but you know, we wanted you to come with us
I know.
to Miami, right? And I tell the story all the time because when things don't go the right way, what you think is the right way in that moment, right?
Hmm.
Is like, hey, let me tell you this story of my friend. And I mean, you could probably tell it better, but for
Yeah,
me, I just want you to know, like, I share this story all the time as a coaching moment for people to say, hey, this gut punch that you just felt, it sucks. But tomorrow the phone is still going to be on and you can still make magic happen. And my
yeah,
buddy, who is now exactly where he was supposed to be the whole time, it's
yeah,
amazing to me. And it like still like even today, like I'm like, it was just that's magic happened in 2010 for you.
for sure. And without getting like too
Yeah.
personal maybe on this, when my dad passed away in the first few weeks of 2010, right, that was a tough time for me. And right, it caused this natural moment. I was turning 30 later that year. I
Yeah.
was living a great life. Things were awesome in many ways, but you start to feel right and think about, well, I'm alone, or I'm just focused on
Right.
my career and I'm maybe not as well rounded as I should be. And your friends, right, getting married and starting to have kids, and life is moving. And sometimes you question, well, am I where I need to be? And life
Sure.
gives you these moments where you pick your head up and think. And that's what I was given. And in the process of doing that, right, talking to some of you guys down there in Miami and
Yeah, because it was
potentially,
right after the January we Jim had
right,
left end of '09 to go to the
right,
Dolphins. I was in talks with them. You knew that. Like, there's a few of us in talks, and then you start talking.
yeah,
The balls start rolling a little bit.
absolutely. And there, at that moment, right, as I came down for that weekend to visit, I, soon thereafter kind of realized that a lot of you guys were building a team, and it may not make the most sense for me to be a part of that team. There were a lot of folks coming from Boston, and I think there
Yep,
was some pressure there, right, to
that's
maybe hire
exactly
some
right.
folks from outside of that same bubble, which is fair.
Yeah,
Um, and looking back, it's kind of funny. Like I wasn't totally upset.
yeah,
I wanted to be with some people that I
sure,
knew,
of course,
but I
we all
also
do.
think I knew it was time to kind of do something different.
Yeah, fly,
And
let your wings out, fly.
yep, exactly, yeah, perfect segue, right? So the spring and summer had gone by, and then of course this opportunity with the Eagles had come around late that summer, and by the time September rolled around, I was at the Eagles,
Yeah,
and selling my condo in Boston and kind of moving on. And there's a lot in between there, and there's a lot that you learn through that process. But I guess the takeaway would be out of something that was kind of personally painful and difficult, it forced me to pick my head up and think. It
yeah,
also drove me to say, well, the status quo might not be what's best for you. And,
yep,
once again, there are different phases of life. Force yourself to step out of your comfort zone a little bit and do something different. And in some ways, it's not completely different, right? But it
yeah,
certainly was, even though I had grown up in the Philly area, I didn't know anybody in the business community. I was 30 years
yeah,
old. I spent my whole, the decade prior in Boston. So there was a learning curve, and then you're like, well, I got to prove myself all over again. All
mhm,
these positive things that people thought about me in Boston, now I have to kind of prove it again. But you get sharper when you go through that process. and
no doubt.
and philosophically, like, you have to take things when they come, and you have to process them, stay true to who you are, what matters to you. In that case, there was a little bit of a draw too, to be closer to my family, all my
Yeah,
siblings as well as my mom. But both worked, right? It was a good move personally, and it was a good move professionally.
yeah,
And that, I think, that moment too, I think has made me, just generally speaking, be a much more grateful person. There's a lot of gratitude I have for
sure.
many things, but I look back at that with a boatload of gratitude. Who knows why or how, or the way the world can work and the universe can work. But I ended up in a great place, and man, I'm lucky, and hopefully
And
that
arguably
shows
the
through.
right whether you never know what the other path could have been, but I
Right.
think as your friend, like, all of us were like, oh my god, this was
Yeah.
perfect, like,
Yeah.
this just and I didn't realize that's how many months had gone by in my story that I share. It's a lot quicker, but
Yeah.
that like but like I remember that happening, and I just remember being like, oh, this is going to be perfect. And then we were all in the NFL, and it was like, oh my God, we just came from this little radio station. Now there's 5 of us in the NFL, and we're doing things differently, and we're bringing a different mindset, and we're changing some things. And, shortly thereafter, I was leaving, going to baseball. And,
Right.
same thing, those same moments, though, those like inflection points. And what I tell leaders is watch your people during life changing moments,
Right.
because the birth of a child, a marriage, purchase of a home, like whatever it might be, death of a parent, like these life moments are those moments where they do take pause for a second, because you're in your grind, you're going through life.
Sure.
Those moments where you actually take a pause is when you start to reevaluate. And I also would add to that, maybe I'm right or wrong, but it was all in the same time. I'm 2 years older than you. I think the business, we had sort of run our course with
Yeah.
that business as well, right? All of
Yep.
us felt it. We're like, we've done everything we can do here.
Right. That's exactly right.
And
And
that's, yeah,
well, and that's an important lesson too, because there are, I've been fortunate to have a series of promotions, but there are moments in everyone's career as you have success where I think you're like, kind of max this out here,
Yeah.
or this particular position, or maybe it's the organization as a whole where you feel kind of maxed out. Who knows? I've had those moments since. Luckily, they've been moments, and something has come along where
Sure.
I've been able to feel more fulfilled and take on a greater leadership role, and that's again something I'm very grateful for. But it comes from hard work. It comes from the process, trusting that process, and being honest with yourself. I think at each
Very
stage of the
honest.
game, the value of kind of self awareness, and the value of being a little tough on yourself from time to time, I think serves all of us really well in the long run. And maybe that's actually a common thread between some of the people that we talked about. I think everyone holds themselves to a pretty high standard.
And we hold ourselves to a high standard, right?
Yeah.
Like if one of us slips, someone's calling us out pretty quickly, and
Yeah.
post a picture that's a little bit over the line of like a little bit ego driven, and we will cry, and you're like, I should probably take that down. That was stupid. That was a stupid moment. But like, I think that's great, right? Because we all do that, and I think that's a good call out, and I think, you know, I talk about it often. Like, I had that moment a few times, right? But one of the self-awareness is a huge thing that I talk about with people, is being aware of not only how you are feeling, but how are people feeling about you?
Sure.
And, seeing changes and going, do I really want to be part of that? Do I want to be part of the next chapter of this thing, right? There were
Right.
changes above you that had happened, and you have to decide, hey, do I want to be part of the next chapter? And you said yes. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
I want to actually shape the next chapter. That's going to be amazing, and then there are times, like for me, where I was like, okay, I've done the next chapter. For me, that doesn't excite me. I think it's great for the city and great for the organization. They're going to win, hopefully. Amazing. For me, I like building and rebuilding things, and that's where I get my most, and being honest to say, I'm going to take a step back. I'm going to lose that giant logo, right? Which feels good and is easy. It opens doors to take a step away, and no path is wrong if it feels right, and you can
Sure.
always adjust. I think that's a big one as well.
Yeah.
Like,
Very, very true.
as
Um,
as we as we kind of go, right, the whole thing here is a lesson from sports that you've been around it your whole life,
yeah.
that you've taken and applied to your happiness and your success. What's something that you've learned that people could take away?
Yeah. So, it's funny. There are some obvious things that I don't want to not mention, but I'll,
Yeah.
glaze over them a little bit because I think it helps me get to a bigger point here. But there are all these core kind of areas of focus, competencies, whatever you want to call them, right? That you learn over time are so important, and they're simple, right? That communication, and the way you treat others, the way you listen, right, which is part of communication, helps kind of establish the culture and the respect
Mhm.
that's needed for everybody to succeed. I think as a leader, you are a coach, right? There's that direct analogy between sports. Our job's to empower others to do their best, to be their best. I mean, we can get into all those details as to how you do that, but um, when I was thinking through this question a little bit over the last 24 hours, I guess I don't realize how often I think it or say it, but always show up. And the reason I mean it, or what I mean behind that comment is, it is a highly, as we talked about before, a highly emotional business because of what happens on the field. Again, even though we're not the ones necessarily
Sure.
running around out there, um, as a result, right, you can get feedback, good and bad, from not just what you hear on the radio in the morning from the general fan, but from a lot of the people that we interact with, right, from our clients, our ticket holders, etc. And so it is easy to be caught up in the ebbs and flows, the ups and downs of a season, of a year, of multiple years.
Yep.
um, People look to leaders to see how they react in times of great success and in times of failure. And it's tough sometimes. Some of this we can't control, but what can we control, right? We can control the things I talked about earlier. We can show up every morning with a level head, the right attitude, We can go check down to those core values, right? Focus on communication, focus on our process and how we do things. Look, I'm not saying that in certain windows of time, that's not difficult. It
Yeah.
is, right? It can be. But if you don't get too high and you don't get too low and you stick to a process and you create the right culture with the right people, when things don't go well, you're going to be in a lot better place. But I think what I've learned in the more recent past, because it can be lonely sometimes, right? You're
Sure.
tired, you're beat up, you're exhausted, you got things going on at home with your family, with kids, maybe with, older parents, what have you. Like, there are a lot of things that are that life brings you that you have to balance.
Mm-hmm.
And I think sometimes I strive for perfection. And I guess what I've learned is just show up and play the game.
Mm-hmm.
If you screw up, apologize. But otherwise,
100%.
people are going to really appreciate you being there. And if you, again, stick to those core values, it kind of works out. And so in my head, there are definitely mornings, right? You swing your legs out of bed and you get into the shower and you're like,
No doubt.
all right, it's time to show up, right?
Yeah,
Um,
I tell people when I worked that's a great one. Thank you. Like I worked at Disney World when I was like 19 years old, and there was a sign above every door before you went out of backstage, as they called it, and it said "Smile, you're on stage."
right.
And I brought that with me everywhere I went, and I had this moment. It's funny at the Padres. I was very lucky. I had a beautiful parking spot, and it had my name, and I would pull up and I would park at it the same way every day and I'd see it and I would actually imagine that it was that sign above the door. It was my moment to have that moment to say,
Yeah.
smile. It's
Right.
like show up. Your job is to lead these folks and to show them even on a bad day. We had some bad days and walking in and going, we got this. We got this. Like
Right.
everybody come together. We got this. And like to your point, there's stuff happening in your life, but there was this long walk down the hallway from where I parked to where my office was. And in that walk, I could have encountered up to 30 different people, right?
Sure.
There could all different types of jobs, all different types of challenges going on in their own lives. Who knows, right? How the energy that you bring to the day could impact them. And if I walked in and it was a bad day and I came in, then guess what? They're going to be like, it's okay to be down today.
Yep.
Right. And I feel like the NFL is 10 times worse at this. Maybe I'm wrong, but
Yep.
a loss on Sunday was like devastating in the office. I mean, baseball, it's like every day is another day, but but like Monday morning after a loss is like, oh, and I remember coming like in and being like, no. We got another one on Sunday and we have a ton of production to do today. We don't have time to feel bad. We didn't lose. We got work to do. And it's like, it's really hard. But I feel like as a leader, that is a really great lesson for people. Like you control, you have a say on the rest of your team's energy that day.
Absolutely. And look, this is a small story, but
Love it.
I kind of forgot about it. And my wife reminded me when we were chatting last night. After we lost the Super Bowl in Arizona,
Okay.
I mean, all that anybody wanted to do was just like go to bed, right? There's this huge party. There's all this. You've had an amazing stretch of time. It truly is a special thing and a gift. And you have to remind yourself that like a lot of our peers have not had a chance to do that. And I had got to do it twice.
Right.
So, one-on-one isn't bad. But in that moment, you just wanted to go to bed. And I had said to her, and again, I kind of forgot about this. I was like, no, we're going to go hang out with everyone, but in particular, the group of people that I work closely with each day. How often are you in this moment? Yes, you just lost, but we also won the NFC Championship. And we've had an amazing experience, over the last couple of months, but also in the last few weeks where everyone comes together tied to a common goal and gets way more work done than you can ever imagine over a 10 to 14 day period.
Insane.
Get thousands of guests to whatever, in this case, Phoenix, Arizona, to ensure that everything runs smoothly. People have a great experience. We take care of everyone that's in our world, in our universe, that has done good by us over the years. And really, you've succeeded. You've succeeded in so many ways. So we should probably hang out outside, have a couple adult beverages with each other, laugh about the season, and enjoy ourselves, even if there's a lump in the back of your throat, right?
It's great.
You're
exactly right.
And I'd always remember that night, but I could have just gone to bed.
Yeah.
because I thought I should
Yeah,
show them.
no, I love that. And being appreciative and having those, I think that comes with some of the other experiences that you've already talked about, right? It's
Yep.
if that had happened at a younger age, you might have gone to bed. If that had
Right.
happened after something else that hadn't happened or whatever, and I believe that's why I started this, because I would have loved to hear a bunch of old guys like us talk about the things that we learned in those days. But like,
Right.
you know, you're right. Like in those moments, how many people never get to do that in life? A lot. Most people will never get to go to a Super Bowl, right? You've
Yeah.
been to two. Most people will never get to go as an employee of a team, like ever, right? Like most people will never win one. Like all the things in that is for me. That's something that I say often. Like I'll always look around and go, how many people get to do this? Just ask yourself. And I'll say it to my kids. And I started my new thing now is counting how many times I get to say what an incredible experience, or what an incredible day,
Yeah.
or what a life, or like anytime I can say those things, right? Like, and I try to say it as often as possible. So I mean, because appreciating those unique things, even in the bad ones, even in this is not great. How many people would kill to be where I am right now and doing what
Sure.
I'm doing and being around these other people is pretty special and enjoying it. I love that, dude. That's a great story.
Yeah.
Thank you. I
No, of
got
course.
now after some losses, you can get put on the hot seat. You can get a little
Yeah.
uncomfortable, right? So that's what we're going to do right now. We're going to go rapid fire questions.
Oh,
Fire away. I'll fire at you. You just come back with whatever comes to mind for you.
all right.
Favorite
I'm ready.
sports memory?
The parade up Broad Street in
Yeah.
February of 2018 after we won Super Bowl 52.
Yeah, it's got to be pretty cool. Best boss ever?
Who? Oh man, I might take some heat for this one. I don't know. So Bob McEwen.
I like it.
I think that the training and the time that he spent with us, kind of hand to hand,
The
really did a
senator.
lot
Yeah.
for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I always my Bob McEwen story was as a young guy going on a sale. I learned how to sell like watching him because he never sold anything. He
Yep.
just had this like air of like, this is great. Like I hope you do it, but if you don't, it's okay. Like it's that good. And like
Yeah.
I was like,
Yeah.
I'd come up with some ideas and he'd be like, it's great. We're gonna sell. I'm like, really? And like you're young and you're like, you love my idea that much? He's like, yeah, I love your idea. Like it's just this like, I'm like, it was pretty. That's really funny. Yeah, you're gonna take heat. It's gonna be great. What's the worst job you've ever had?
Ooh, probably my first job washing dishes in Ocean City, New Jersey, at a pizza joint. It was nasty. Yeah, that's definitely the one. Hey, it was all up from there, right?
No
Just
doubt, no
incremental
doubt.
improvement.
So let's go the other way. What's your favorite place to vacation?
Favorite place to vacation? Oh, um, we so we went up to Watch Hill, Rhode Island this summer as a
Okay.
family. So I'm answering this through the lens of like
Yeah.
dad and husband. And we already booked a trip for next summer
Wow.
there. I really, really enjoyed it. And of course, love going back up to the Boston area in
Sure.
general in the
Yeah.
summertime. So that's probably the winner. But I enjoy a good golf trip too.
Yeah,
So
yeah. There's two
two
lenses.
very
We all have
different
two
things.
lenses. Yeah, I get it. I get it. Yeah. But the question should have been, where do you like to go on vacation to relax? That's very
Yes.
different.
Yeah. So I answered it the right way, I think.
Yeah, no, it was perfect. It was perfect. What's the most exciting deal you've ever done that you were just like so fired up that you did
You
that?
know, not at the Eagles. I
Yeah.
think we when Arbella Insurance became the title presenter of the Jimmy Fund Radio Telethon,
Okay. Yeah.
we had already done the year prior. I think we had done some sort of a sponsorship with Arbella around the Radiothon, but to really make them the presenter, we had to work hand in hand with Nesson, and
Yep.
myself and our good buddy Aaron Thomas, who was at Nesson at the time, came together. And I was actually up for a game earlier this summer,
Oh,
and I
really?
saw that they were still the presenter of the
Yes.
Radiothon. Gosh, almost 20 years later, probably 17 years
Pretty
ago
close.
that deal
Yeah.
was done, probably
That's
2007.
amazing.
And so the reason I answer it, that is what unlocked for me going from like a media seller to thinking more like a marketer
Hmm.
and a sponsorship salesperson,
Yep.
right? That took in corporate social responsibility, took in TV, radio, media value, the earned
Yep.
media that comes from it, the PR around it, the affiliation with the team, even though they weren't a team sponsor. Right? There were all these things that kind of played into it. And I was like, oh, I think I get it,
I
right? I
like
get how
that.
this
Yeah.
works. So
Yeah. That's amazing.
that's why that matters to me.
I love that. Yeah. That's a
Yeah.
great one. What's your favorite food?
Oh man, chicken cutlets are pretty good. I mean, I'm showing my Italian roots here, but a good Sunday Italian meal with some
Yeah.
combination of pasta, meatballs, chicken cutlets.
I know. We don't have so living out here in San Diego. That's not. I mean, there's some good places you can go and get it, but it's not like back east. It's like every corner's got somewhere where you can just stop
Yeah,
in and even like just grab a sandwich, and it's like, oh, bro, that's is like, I do miss that. That
yeah.
is for sure. That's on my list too. Um, what's the first thing you do in the morning?
First thing I do, I get up, brush my teeth, take a shower
Yeah,
before I even yeah, and then I'm downstairs with
ready
the
to go.
girls before they go off to school.
Got it. Love it. What's a sport you love to watch that isn't football?
Golf, specifically the PGA,
Yeah.
and baseball,
Yeah.
which is very timely right now. You know, when it's Red October here in Philly, it's
Yeah.
a pretty exciting time.
Playoff
So
baseball is, I don't know. It's funny. And maybe it's because the Boston kid in me or those memories that we all had as young adults through those years of
yeah,
03, 04, magical years. But like I've been at the Padres games the last couple nights and just there's just an energy to play. Like every pitch is like a heart attack waiting
yeah,
to happen
totally.
in either direction. You're like, ah.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. I mean,
Yeah.
and I'm expecting a pretty exciting weekend around here too. So
Yeah.
it should be
That's awesome.
great.
I love that. What it last one, Dunkin' or Starbucks?
Duncan,
Dunkin', what's your go-to?
usually iced coffee, no milk, just one sugar in there.
All year round?
Pretty much,
Yeah.
unless it's really, really, really cold,
People
right?
here in California couldn't believe that, like, back in, like, the North, like, we would drink iced
Yeah,
coffee all year round. I'm like, "Oh, yeah, that's standard practice."
yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. When it's you get one of
Right.
those cold snaps for a couple weeks in February, I'm
You're
drinking
out.
hot coffee.
You're
But
out. I love it. All right, so then the last segment of the show is really for me, and I know it matters to you too, as we've talked about it, is providing value. This is the stuff that like when we were all younger. We were fortunate to have some people in our lives that took the time to do this. But with technology and everything now, it's like I started this because I was like, I'm so fortunate to have these amazing friends and influences in my life that if I could share them with the world, then why like I should, right? Like they're
yeah,
just amazing. And so what advice would you give somebody who said, "Hey, I want to work for a pro sports team today?" What would you tell
yeah.
them to do?
To be all the curiosity that you have, pursue it. Ask the questions. Find the right person to help you answer the questions. I think I generally say that all good salespeople are naturally curious. I actually think it's just broader than that. Um, there's so many interesting ways that people make money. So many
Mhm.
different businesses that they're in, and it's fun. It's cool. Ask, learn, listen. Curiosity is a wonderful thing. And look, I sometimes that advice is right back at myself because we all get in our grooves, right? Where we have a little bit too much tunnel vision.
Yep.
And, reading more, understanding more about the why behind a particular scenario or business story that you might read, it's
Yep.
important.
Yeah.
But definitely constantly thinking and asking and
Yeah, it's great.
chatting.
Great. That's great. And it's funny. So many. I think when the sports industry's evolved so much over the last
Yeah.
20 years that now there's like college programs dedicated, all these different things.
Yeah.
And you're right at the core of it all. It's just like being inquisitive to learn and wanting
Yeah.
to continue to learn. And that's why I love the industry is because those who are really working hard do
Mhm.
succeed. It's pretty incredible. What would you change anything about your career?
No, I think there are moments in time that I would have maybe pushed myself to have a little bit more balance,
Okay.
or to appreciate the moment that I was in. Um, so they're kind of two different things, right? In some ways, appreciating the moment that I was in, but also, um, at times maybe even using the time I had more intelligently and spending more time outside of the office doing things that fill my cup.
Yeah.
Because I've had windows where I've gotten burnt out, and you
Mhm.
can point and blame and say, well, it was because of this, and things are going to get better next week, right? I've told people that too. I've used that line. Things will get better when this is over. That's over. No, we don't know what tomorrow brings. You need to be focused and balance it the best you can, on the right things. And look, it is easier said than done. There are
Sure.
going to be times when you're wrapped up in family stuff, and there are going to be times when you're wrapped up in work stuff. But uh, things are always there. They're always going to be there. So if you have a moment to an afternoon to go pick your kids up and go watch a field hockey game, do it. If you don't, try to make it up down the line and take advantage of whatever that is going on with work, right? And
Yep.
make that a successful day. But um, yeah, going back and maybe teaching myself a little more about balance over the years would probably been a good thing.
Yeah. I love that. And I agree. I think wife, kids changes perspective. Again, back to those life changing moments, right? Where you look
Yeah,
around and you're like, it does, right? Like my
yeah,
daughter turning 10 was another moment for me that I had never thought would be a moment, but I was like, gosh, she's turning 10, which means it's about to go. The rocket ship's
yep,
about to take off, right? And that was a big moment for me to look around and go, wait a minute, and like, the schedule is tough, and you have to make some choices. And
yeah,
she's 14 now, and she's in high school, and like, wow, like mind blown. You're like, this is happening really fast, and
yep.
finding that balance is really, really, really important. All right, last question, and I ask everybody this question because I like to end on a positive note. What's the best part of your job?
Having the opportunity to lead, having the opportunity to make a positive impression and help, especially some of the younger folks on the staff, right? Help them grow, help them realize that they have that opportunity, right? That we've
Yep.
talked about, going back and realizing the moment they have it. They're
Yeah.
here, they're in the building, and having a chance to coach them, to see them succeed, to pick them up when they need to be picked up. Because I care so much,
Yep.
I I don't know. That doesn't, like, a lot of those things don't. I don't feel like a heavy weight because of that. I kind of, it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity to do good and provide meaning to, at times all of our careers, right? It could be a little bit,
No.
it could be a little bit about making money or getting the deal done,
Sure.
or what have you. But to provide that support to others and create meaning for yourself and to learn from them as much as they learn from me, there's value in that. I mean, look, some of the young folks coming into business now, they're 20 plus years younger than us. Like, I'm pretty sure I can learn a few things from them, right?
No doubt.
And that's valuable, especially if I want to stick around for a long time, and
That's
continue
it.
to have a good career.
The minute you think you have all the answers, the world's changing so fast. Just watching your kids with the phone, you're like, God, they're moving so much faster. I, when we were starting .com for WEI.com, when we were starting that, we had digital cameras and we're going in the lock. I told a story, like you're in there, and we were the young kids at that point. All the old
Right,
school camera guys are looking at me and laughing, being like, oh, look at that little cute camera. Ha ha ha. Well, guess what? Like
right.
now it's like, how small can the camera get? Right. Like how
Sure.
fast and how nimble can we get it live? Is it a phone? Like, and there was a lot to learn, not just because we had leadership that was forcing us to be innovative, but like today, these kids are coming in and, spending time with them and listening and learning, and not, I think the days of like ruling with an iron fist are over. It's
Yeah,
ruling with,
for
it's
sure.
a collaboration, flat thinking. Those are the successful organizations where a
Right.
24-year-old kid, has as much say in that meeting as, that was like, that's powerful, right? Like
Yeah.
whenever new people would join my team when I was at the Padres, I was like, hey, just so you know, out there we all have titles and responsibility. In here, they all get thrown out the door. Like, sit where you want. Like, there's no hierarchy in seats. Like, and everybody's opinion matters. So like, let it fly,
Yeah.
and I love that, because you're right. Some of the best ideas come from kids or people, bringing somebody into like an NFL team, like you and I coming from the media side brought different perspectives, right?
Right.
That, I brought a guy into the, to the Padres that had only been to one baseball game in his life. And he was like, hey, why do they always have to run to first? Could they try running to third once in a while?
Oh man.
And everybody's head went like this. But like 2 weeks later, they're like, thank God that guy, he's thinking of weird stuff, but like,
Yeah.
it got us to this really funny idea, which is great. And it's like, you need that spark of just like complete outside craziness. But I
Right.
love that, dude. And that's exactly right. I love where you're at. I'm so proud of you. What an incredible, I know we're not done yet, but I just want to tell you, like, watching what you do and how you operate, and just love you as a friend. I'm so proud of you, and keep doing what you do, Naps.
Absolutely. Well, right back at you, man. I love you too, and thank you for having me on. It's awesome, and proud of you for all that you've accomplished. It's cool, but we do need to get together soon.
I know. I'm coming east. Watch out. Here I come.
You're always invited.